Shalom, peace and blessings there, children of Israel. Yeah, what I'm on to say about been watching these videos and stuff, brothers. Everybody coming against the scriptures, everybody speaking against being words, claim the white man brought the Bible to us, blah blah blah. But if you don't look into history, you will see that the children of Israel were living in Alexandria, Egypt. The children of Israel were living in North Syrian Africa in Carthage, and in Carthage there was a Christian community that was teaching the ways, the set of the Nazarenes for 500 years before it even came over to the Europeans, and it was started in North Africa. Many Hebrews was living in North Africa and Carthage. When you read the book in the Bible, in the New Testament, I think the guy from Cyrene was Rufus. He's the one that was carrying the cross for Yahshua. And when you read the book of Acts chapter 2, you will see they were dispersed to strange cities upon the persecution of Stephen. So many people don't understand that the teachings wasn't brought to us from the Europeans. They came later, took our culture, and teach it back to us. But in North Africa, it was being taught. Perpetua was the first martyr. She was one of the sisters in North Africa. So they would tell that the African Christianity, but because the people were dark-skinned, the people, but they don't want to tell the truth that the Hebrews was living in North Africa. The Hebrews dwelt in North Africa. See what I'm saying? There was communities up there, the old towns up there with the name Yahuwah on the temple walls. There were the colonies from in the time Elephantes colonies, the Hebrews that dwelt along there on the Niger and stuff came around. All from Niger, then the west down to the West Africa. So when we understand these things, we try to get some clarification here with the concept that the Council of Nicaea was founded by Constantine, and that the Hebrews, that the knowledge started with the Europeans from the Catholic Church. But in other words, the Catholic Church got it from the Church of Africa in Cyrenia. And that's why we're going to break these things down. Now there was a council, it was called the Ecumenical Council, Ecumenical Council, the Seventh Ecumenical Council. Also, it's called the Second Ecumenical Council. It was a council of worldwide church bishops coming from around Asia, all to into the place where Constantinople, and they had a debate whether or not there should be about iconography, which is like images painting the Christ. When you look at that paintings, you will see that these was all dark-skinned people. They're the ones that was teaching that doctrine that break away from the truth. And these popes and things you look at in this painting, if you look on the painting, the seventh, excuse me, Ecumenical Council, you will see they're all dark images. Constantine II, they were up in those images. And we found that these things wasn't taught us from the Europeans. Later on, we realized the knowledge being brought to us, and we found that even in historical books, many Europeans documented that it's historically known that the children of Israel fled from Jerusalem 70 AD into the west coast of Africa. All these things are documented. So some may say, well, I don't want to read the Bible, but I heard about the books of Hanok, which is Enoch, the righteous. The books of Enoch was translated from the Ethiopians. So there's no way they ain't saying that this book was taught to them from the Europeans. The book of Enoch was translated from the Ethiopians. And the book of Enoch speaks about righteousness. It speaks about the elect one will come. Show you how to love your brother. It speaks about a new word. It speaks about repentance. It tells you about in the time of lawlessness, men will be, homosexuality was going to come. Men dressed like women. And people be fighting. It goes into the slavery. It talks about the children of Israel going into captivity by the Egyptians when the dream that Enoch had. So all is about righteousness and repentance still. Some of you Egyptologists will say it's about Mayat. Well, Mayat is teaching the laws and commandments. So of course then we had that knowledge coming from us, which first came out from Enoch taught his children, Noah taught his children, and the earth was of one language, so the knowledge wasn't hidden from anyone. The first books that was taught from Enoch. He bring the knowledge to the sons, Noah. Noah taught it to the Kemetic people. His children taught that knowledge, and it came through the process of time. Now after a period of time, man got off into wickedness again. The Most High raised up Abraham. Abraham was the one that was found to be righteous, because when you read the Bible, so you see that there were Philistines king that took Abraham's wife, and he says, "Will you destroy a righteous nation?" And Abraham says, "I thought the fear of the Most High Yah was not in this land." And him and Yah had a conversation. Yah said, "You need to return to the man and his wife. You're a dead man." Now we're speaking about this, the Most High having a conversation with a heathen nation, the Philistines. His name was Abimelech. But his kingdom was righteous. A Hamitic kingdom was righteous. See, the Most High is not a respect of persons. But he of that nation, that righteousness is accepted of him. And that's what it's about. So we always been teaching this righteousness to the nations, the people. And the books that we have been coming across, have this book here called The Hebrew Religion in West Africa. This goes into various accounts and historical data about the children of Israel. And all the scholars in there are Europeans. And the reason why that these people, like I said, there's no reason for them to have to lie to us, because at that time we were still in slavery. See, we were still in slavery. I'm sorry, but we were still in slavery at that time. I had it in another book. I guess I'm trying to find it. But what I'm trying to say here now is like the Jews were living from India to Ethiopia. In the book of Esther, the king Ashurus had 127 provinces. And in his provinces, there were Hebrew Israelite settlements. And they had plotted to destroy the children of Israel. And when the plot had failed, then the people converted and become Hebrew Israelites, converts. So the book of Enoch, like I said, was translated from the Ethiopians and given to us. And they say Christianity did not start in Europe, nor did it start in Rome, but it started in Egypt and Alexandria. The children of Israel was deported into Egypt in ships by Ptolemy. So we had a mass migration of Israelites going into Egypt at the time of Ptolemy, and many of those people become Hellenistic and were accepting the Greek culture. Many of those people were speaking now the Greek tongue instead of speaking Hebrew. That's how we come up now with the Septuagint, because they had lost the language, the way of life. And it tells you in the Maccabees, all people like the ways of the heathen, just as today as we become Americanized, we no longer know about a culture. But we had a culture, and it was stolen from us, and it's stolen legacy. And we must understand books written by Europeans. George Bastin recorded that we had Mosaic laws and customs straight from the Bible. The Fulani tribes recorded that they came from the east. Keep into mind that this was a time when we were not allowed to read any books. So the reason why I'm going back to these old European scholars is because this time there's no reason for them to be lying about it or biased, because they were capturing us and putting us in captivity. Like I told you now, here's a list of books which I came across: bibliography, compilation of books written by Europeans, travelers, early explorers, and missionaries about the customs of the West African tribes. The first book I'm going to tell you, his name is called John Beat Khan. His book is called Residence Among the Ashantis. He speaks about the Ashantis, people keeping the Sabbath. He speaks about us observing the new moon. And he also goes on to say that before they had any encounter with white European missionaries. So how is that possible? Do you keep the Sabbath way before any European missionary had encountered them? Now we've been brought down over to this part of the world and forget our culture. Second book is called Amongst the Ebos. You can go online. His name is George Basden. Customs of the people, he said, Mosaic and Levitical laws. That book is Second Witness. Because some will say we don't have no other primary sources. Well, I got the primary sources to show you now. We got now another book written by a Jesuit priest called Abbe Proyart, History of the Congos. 1776, he ventured into the parts of Congos. He claimed that the people were writing in Hebrew, and they speak Hebrew, some Latin and Greek they had in the language. Another book, it's called The Golden Trade by Richard Jobson. like Job's son. Reference, he speaks about us to Leviticus law as is in our Bible. That's what he said. Our Bible. They ain't got the Bible. Knew about Adam and Eve and they wrote in Hebrew characters. We got a map by Sir Danville. 7047 West African map. Kingdom of Yehuda when you start from the top. And that map can also be found in the city of Savannah. We went to Savannah and we found that same map. See, they knew where they were to find us. They had maps. Now, there's another book written by Arabic manuscripts. His name is Ed Drisi. People of Lamnan and Tekoa are Jews. He said when they were taking them in captivity, the people said these people are Yahudians. The Fulani tribal traditions knew about the Mosaic law, said they came from the east. Joseph J. Williams, the book I showed you, Ashanti language is equipped as Hebrew, and the verb for Yah or Haya is to be. The supreme deity of the Ashantis is Yahuwah. Now we got another book here called A Geographical History of Africa, written by Leo Africanus. We have a book called The Jews of Africa. This book is written by this guy named Sidney Mandelson. Sidney Mandelson. And he wrote in his book on page 91, they say the Philossians dark-skinned vices. We have a book called Mission from Cape Coast to Ashantis. This is by T. Edward Boldick, 1889. He says, beginning at the top of the map, I find a place called Yehuda. Right? Mission from Cape Coast is his book. You can go online and still see that book is there still with the map showing the Fort Judah and all the names that Yaori, Yah is like. Now we don't find those names on the African maps. They removed those off the name. Now you see. But when they first had 18th century maps and 17th century map, we had a flourishing kingdom among these people. That's how that they can say that Ham is not the father of the Negroes. Because they know the different customs that our people dwell among these people for many times, long time ago. It also states in this book that the guy says here, in page 61, page 138, from the book called Jews of Africa by Sidney Mandelson, page 138, note, history has recorded the date of the Israelites' immigration into West Africa. History. We didn't know that history. We know found that that's our culture. So I'm giving thanks and praise that we had to wake up to this truth, and we're gonna tell you all, do your research, study hard, study to prove yourself.